Chapter 13. Ambition. 3 men met at a tavern table. One was a weaver, another a carpenter, and the third a plowman. Said the weaver, "I sold a fine linen shroud today for 2 pieces of gold. Let us have all the wine we went." "And I," said the carpenter, "I sold my best coffin. We will have a great roast with the wine." "I only dug a grave," said the plowman, "but my patron paid me double. Let us have honey cakes too." And all that evening the tavern was busy, for they called often for wine and meat and cakes, and they were merry. And the host rubbed his hands and smiled at his wife, for his guests were spending freely. When they left, the moon was high, and they walked along the road singing and shouting together. The host and his wife stood in the tavern door and looked after them. "Ah," said the wife, "these gentlemen, so free-handed and so gay. If only they could bring us such luck every day, then our son need not be a tavern keeper and work hard. We could educate him, and he could become a priest." Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This story is a dark and deeply ironic commentary on human greed, the source of wealth, and societal aspirations. The economics of death. The 3 men are celebrating and feasting extravagantly. However, their wealth comes directly from the sorrow and death of others, a shroud, a coffin, and a grave. They show zero empathy for the dead, only joy for their profits. The blindness of greed. The tavern keeper and his wife only see the money flowing in. They wish for such luck every day, completely ignoring that for these men to be rich every day, people in their town must constantly die. The ultimate irony of ambition. The wife wants this blood money to educate her son, so he can become a priest. A priest's role is to minister to the sick, dying, and grieving. She is wishing for continuous death so her son can get a job dealing with death, highlighting the absurd and cyclical nature of selfish human ambition. This chapter forces us to look at the foundations of our own success. Are we wishing for circumstances that unknowingly rely on the suffering of others? Chapter 14. The new pleasure. Last night I invented the new pleasure, and as I was giving it the first trial, an angel and a devil came rushing toward my house. They met at my door and fought with each other over my newly created pleasure. The one crying, "It is a sin." The other, "It is a virtue." Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This extremely brief but powerful chapter questions how society and religion label our actions and experiences. The subjectivity of morals. The narrator creates something entirely new. Because it is new, it does not yet have a label. The rush to categorize. The moment something brings human pleasure, the angel and the devil, representing orthodox religious and societal binaries, rush to claim it. They cannot stand ambiguity. Everything must be strictly defined as either good or evil. The absurdity of dogma. The fact that the angel calls it a sin and the devil calls it a virtue, or vice versa in their fight, shows that these moral labels are often arbitrary. The authorities themselves don't even know what it is, but they are desperate to control it. The chapter suggests that true human joy and experience exist entirely outside the rigid, artificial boxes of sin and virtue created by society. Chapter 15. The other language. 3 days after I was born, as I lay in my silken cradle, gazing with astonished dismay on the new world round about me, my mother spoke to the wet nurse, saying, "How is my child?" And the wet nurse answered, "He does well, madame. I have fed him 3 times, and never before have I seen a babe so young, yet so gay." And I was indignant, and I cried, "It is not true, mother, for my bed is hard, and the milk I have sucked is bitter to my mouth, and the odor of the breast is foul in my nostrils, and I am most miserable." But my mother did not understand, nor did the nurse, for the language I spoke was that of the world from which I came. And on the 21st day of my life, as I was being christened, the priest said to my mother, "You should indeed be happy, madame, that your son was born a Christian." And I was surprised, and I said to the priest, "Then your mother in heaven should be unhappy, for you were not born a Christian. But the priest too did not understand my language. And after 7 moons, one day a soothsayer looked at me, and he said to my mother, "Your son will be a statesman and a great leader of men." But I cried out, "That is a false prophecy, for I shall be a musician, and naught but a musician shall I be." But even at that age my language was not understood, and great was my astonishment. And after 33 years, during which my mother and the nurse and the priest have all died, the shadow of God be upon their spirits, the soothsayer still lives. And yesterday I met him near the gate of the temple, and while we were talking together, he said, "I have always known you would become a great musician. Even in your infancy I prophesied and foretold your future." And I believed him, for now I too have forgotten the language of that other world. Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is a profoundly sad story about the loss of spiritual purity and how society forces us to conform and forget our true selves. The purity of the soul. The baby arrives from the other world, the spiritual realm, speaking the absolute truth. He feels the harshness of the physical world, but the adults project their own comfortable lies onto him, claiming he is gay, happy, and doing well. The projection of society. The priest assigns him a religion, and the soothsayer assigns him a career, statesman. The child rejects all of this, knowing his true soul's purpose to be a musician, but the adults are deaf to the truth. The tragedy of aging. The most heartbreaking moment is the ending. At 33, the narrator runs into the soothsayer. The soothsayer blatantly lies to save face, claiming he always knew the narrator would be a musician. The forgetting. The ultimate tragedy is that the narrator believes the lie. He has spent so much time in the physical world that he has completely forgotten the language of that other world. He has lost his inner truth. This chapter asks us to look inward. Have we forgotten our original, authentic language just to survive and fit into the adult world? Chapter 16. The Pomegranate. Once when I was living in the heart of a pomegranate, I heard a seed saying, "Someday I shall become a tree, and the wind will sing in my branches, and the sun will dance on my leaves, and I shall be strong and beautiful through all the seasons." Then another seed spoke and said, "When I was as young as you, I too held such views, but now that I can weigh and measure things, I see that my hopes were vain." And a third seed spoke also, "I see in us nothing that promises so great a future." And a fourth said, "But what a mockery our life would be without a greater future." Said a fifth, "Why dispute what we shall be when we know not even what we are?" But a sixth replied, "Whatever we are, that we shall continue to be." And a seventh said, "I have such a clear idea how everything will be, but I cannot put it into words." Then an eighth spoke, and a ninth, and a 10th, and then many, until all were speaking, and I could distinguish nothing for the many voices. And so I moved that very day into the heart of a quince, where the seeds are few and almost silent. Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is another brilliant symbolic story by Kahlil Gibran. It explores human nature, the noise of differing opinions, and the ultimate search for mental peace over endless debate. The different seeds represent human perspectives. Each seed in the pomegranate represents a different type of person in society. The first is an optimist, dreaming of the future. The second and third are cynics and pessimists, crushed by reality. The fourth is hopeful, while the fifth and sixth represent philosophers and fatalists, debating existence. The noise of society. As more seeds join the conversation, the environment becomes chaotic. This perfectly mirrors modern society or social media, where everyone has a loud opinion, but the sheer volume of voices makes it impossible to find any real clarity or truth. The search for peace. The quince. The narrator chooses to leave the noisy, crowded pomegranate and moves to the quince, a fruit where seeds are few and quiet. This highlights the human soul's deep craving for solitude and simplicity. The core lesson. Sometimes, the most intelligent thing a person can do is step away from the pointless arguments and endless debates of the crowd. True wisdom and clarity are often found in silence, not in the noise of the majority. This chapter compels us to reflect. Are we wasting our energy arguing in the crowded pomegranates of life instead of seeking the quiet peace of our own quince? Chapter 17. The Two Cages. In my father's garden there are two cages. In one is a lion which my father's slaves brought from the desert of Nineveh. In the other is a songless sparrow. Every day at dawn the sparrow calls to the lion, "Good morrow to thee, brother prisoner." Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is a brief yet profoundly impactful story by Kahlil Gibran. It highlights how the loss of freedom strips away all worldly differences, making everyone equal in suffering. The illusion of hierarchy. In the natural world, a lion is mighty and fearsome, while a sparrow is small and fragile. However, once placed inside the cages, their physical strength and natural status no longer matter. Captivity as the great equalizer. The cages represent any form of boundary, oppression, or hardship. A cage is a cage, whether it holds the king of the jungle or a tiny bird. The pain of losing freedom is identical for both of them. Shared suffering creates bonds. The sparrow greets the lion as brother prisoner. This powerful phrase shows that shared trauma and captivity create a deep sense of equality and kinship that would never exist in the open wild. The songless sparrow. The sparrow is specifically described as songless, symbolizing that captivity kills joy, hope, and natural expression, regardless of who you are. This chapter compels us to reflect. Do we only recognize our shared humanity and true equality when we are stripped of our status and placed in the same cages of hardship? Chapter 18. The Three Ants. 3 ants met on the nose of a man who was lying asleep in the sun, and after they had saluted one another, each according to the custom of his tribe, they stood there conversing. The first ant said, "These hills and plains are the most barren I have known. I have searched all day for a grain of some sort, and there is none to be found." Said the second ant, "I too have found nothing, though I have visited every nook and glade. This is, I believe, what my people call the soft, moving land where nothing grows." Then the third ant raised his head and said, "My friends, we are standing now on the nose of the supreme ant, the mighty and infinite ant, whose body is so great that we cannot see it, whose shadow is so vast that we cannot trace it, whose voice is so loud that we cannot hear it, and he is omnipresent." When the third ant spoke thus, the other ants looked at each other and laughed. At that moment, the man moved, and in his sleep raised his hand and scratched his nose, and the 3 ants were crushed. Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is a deeply philosophical and somewhat dark story by Kahlil Gibran that highlights the limits of perception, human arrogance, and the fragility of existence. The illusion of perception. The ants mistake a man's face for hills and plains. Because of their tiny size, they are completely incapable of comprehending the larger reality they are standing on. This symbolizes how humans, too, try to explain the massive universe using our very limited senses and knowledge. God in our own image. The wisest of the 3 ants realizes there is a greater entity, but can only imagine it as the supreme ant. This sharply critiques how human beings project their own traits onto God, shaping the divine in a human image because we cannot fathom anything beyond our own nature. The mockery of the unknown. The other 2 practical, survival-focused ants laugh at the third ant's theory. Society often mocks visionaries or philosophers who try to look beyond the immediate physical world. The brutal fragility of life. The ending is sudden and absolute. The supreme ant, the sleeping man, isn't acting out of anger or malice. He simply scratches an itch in his sleep. This shows how insignificant life can be in the grand scheme of the universe, where a massive unconscious force can wipe us out in a fraction of a second. This chapter compels us to reflect. Are we also just tiny creatures arguing over barren hills, completely unaware of the massive, indifferent forces surrounding us that could end everything in an instant? Chapter 19. The Grave Digger. Once, as I was burying one of my dead selves, the grave digger came by and said to me, "Of all those who come here to bury, you alone I like." Said I, "You please me exceedingly. But why do you like me?" "Because," said he, "they come weeping and go weeping. You only come laughing and go laughing." Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is a profound, metaphorical short story by Kahlil Gibran about personal transformation, letting go of the past, and spiritual rebirth. Burying a dead self. The act of burying a dead self represents outgrowing old habits, beliefs, or past versions of oneself. It shows that continuous personal growth requires letting outdated parts of ourselves die so new parts can live. Weeping versus laughing. Most people come to the graveyard weeping because they mourn physical death or cling painfully to the past. The narrator laughs because he is celebrating his spiritual rebirth and his liberation from an old limiting identity. The gravedigger's perspective. The gravedigger, who constantly sees grief and sorrow, deeply appreciates the narrator's joy. This symbolizes how rare it is for people to willingly and happily let go of their past mistakes or former identities. This chapter compels us to reflect. Are we holding on to our dead selves with grief, or are we willing to joyfully bury them to make way for a newer, wiser version of who we are? Chapter 20. On the steps of the temple. Yesterday, on the marble steps of the temple, I saw a woman sitting between two men. One side of her face was pale, the other was blushing. Conclusion and meaning of the chapter. This is a very short, highly symbolic vignette by Kahlil Gibran that captures a complex human drama in just 2 sentences. The duality of emotion, the contrast between the pale side and the blushing side of her face, perfectly illustrates the internal conflict she is experiencing. It shows 2 completely different emotional reactions happening simultaneously. The two men represent 2 different forces in her life. One man causes her fear, anxiety, or duty, represented by the paleness, while the other brings out her passion, excitement, or love, represented by the blush. This often hints at the presence of an unwanted obligation and a secret desire sitting right next to each other. The sacred setting. Setting this scene on the steps of the temple adds a profound layer of irony. A temple is a place of purity, truth, and spiritual devotion. Yet here, on its steps, a very earthly, hidden, and conflicted human drama of secrets and desires is unfolding. This chapter compels us to reflect. How often do we carry hidden, divided emotions and secret conflicts even in the most sacred or public of places?